How you doing, Graeme?
I'm not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, it's your debut from your house, from your new house.
From my new house, from
Yeah,
the Batcave.
debut live stream. You've got your books there, your epic comic book collection, and we are here to review the Batman. But yeah, first we're gonna have a nice little introduction because our good buddy Jay did this fancy, nice intro that we don't very get to use very often. So we'll be back in a second after our lovely Comic Sphere introduction. See you guys in a second. Yeah. I was like, while we did that, I was like, well, this is all coming through my computer, so I need to put some headphones in. So yes, I now have headphones in. Magical headphone transition. Graeme, how are you, my friend? How are you getting on?
I'm good. Nothing to report. All good on the Western Front.
Apart from you moved into a new house.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
Very stressful, but we got there in the end.
How is it? How is the place? How's the vibe?
It's a lot bigger than the last place. It's nice having most of my comics out. I've not quite got there yet. I've still got another 12 or so crates to unpack, but cool. I'm getting there.
Cool, excellent.
Need to do a few more bits. We're still decorating different rooms, and we finished with a plasterer, and we're getting there.
Yeah, nice. That's good. Well, I'm glad to hear it. And this is what we're obviously a little bit banter aside, house banter aside. You look great. Your goatee is fantastic. It's a pleasure to have you in the digital realm. Normally, you're sat here in the wrestling office. I need to think of a better name for that. And we're normally scrunched up playing video games or watching stuff. So, how do you feel? I know you're away from me and we can't touch each other. But how do you feel about this, the digital sphere, doing it from there?
It's all right. I mean, it means I don't have to drive home.
It's true, yeah.
I can just roll off this and roll straight into bed, so that's good. But no, it's all right. It's nice having, a better internet connection and, the room to do things and stuff. But obviously I miss you, and I do like it when we meet up and do it together. It's fun.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, and it is good to be here with you. Obviously, we are here to talk about the Batman, the film that I saw after three attempts last night, and you saw a couple of nights before that. Now, so we're going to do a little bit of review for anybody that comes back to this or anybody that joins us. We are going to have a couple of spoilers in here. But we'll try and do a quick run through, quick review. Graeme, you go first, right? Because you're a fan. You read the book. You read the comic books. You are, I'm a Batman fan. I've been a fan of the movies. I've kind of just got into the comic books in recent years as I've kind of settled into this, very nice space, whatever that I'm in. What are your thoughts on it? Because I'm not going to be as nice as I wanted to be. When I was expecting a lot more than I got, and that's me. That I'm just going to give you that, but you go with what you thought.
I thought it was a really refreshing take. I really liked it. I thought it was nice seeing the detective side of it in film, because you don't get that all too often.
Yeah.
Normally it's like brute force and you're beating up or silly jokes or whatever. Whereas this was like, I love the lenses. I don't want to spoil it too much, but like the whole detective investigation thing. I thought it was a bit silly how, when you think about it logically, the detectiveness of it wasn't great, because obviously what he intended to do was bug it up a little bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think for me personally, and we'll try and keep it short-ish. For me, Paul Dano was the star of the show. I think Paul Dano's character was amazingly done, very twisted, very dark. But really, I felt that the Batman, that Robert Pattinson's Batman was quite a weak quite a weak detective, quite a weak character. He was shown right until the end, really, when he used kind of brute force to win the day and to beat back the Riddler's henchmen. Right basically towards the towards that, he was kind of outshone. If we're going story, acting wise as well, I think Paul Dano was the star of the show, followed closely by Zoe Kravitz. I think
Colin Farrell as well.
Colin Farrell as well, absolutely, yeah.
Unrecognizable. And I've seen a few people say that, you could tell it was him as soon as he started talking, but I genuinely couldn't. And I knew it was him going in, and I still didn't quite believe it.
Yeah, I couldn't tell it was him either. It was surreal to see Colin Farrell in there. There was some fantastic performances. But really, really from the word go, I wasn't sold on Pattinson as a Batman. The grungy kind of, I love the fact they used, and I know you've got some notes, they used Something in the Way by Nirvana, and I think they wanted this kind of younger looking, darker, grungier, broodier Batman, and I think they certainly achieved that, but it was kind of like emo, Batman, and for me personally, I wasn't sold on emo Batman versus, say, Affleck, or even, there's a look. I would say Pattinson beats Clooney, and I would say, Pattinson beats some other, but it beats Kilmer for me personally. But certainly there have been better portrayals that focus less on the kind of angsty, broody moodiness, this was very angsty, broody, and moody. There was less of because as a detective, as a crime fighter, I thought that the portrayal of Batman was weak here, personally, and I thought Paul Dano's performance as the Riddler and Zoe Kravitz's performance as the Catwoman were fantastic. That's my brief review. Basically, is that if I had to give it a grade out of 10, I would have given it a 6.5 because, and also, can we just talk about, sex jokes aside, can we just talk about the length?
The girth of the film.
3.5 hours, Graeme. 3 hours and 20 minutes, or I think it was 3 hours 20 minutes with the credits, and the tease at the end, as well. Too long. I like a well-rounded story, Graeme. I like to feel like I've paid, I've got my money's worth out of a film. Now, but 3 hours and 20 minutes, for me, even as a fan of Batman and a fan of superhero movies, as you know I am, too much for me personally. Now, I've kind of dominated the conversation for the last sort of 8 minutes, so I want to hear your thoughts as a diehard, fan. Give me your grade out of 10, and what did you think of the performances?
I will say now, I would give it an 8, but I might change my mind by the end of this discussion.
Okay.
I agree with you. It was too long. I think, personally, I got about 2 hours in, and I thought, do you know what? I need to go to the toilet.
Yeah.
And I was holding it in, and then, like, towards the end of it, the tail end of it, I thought, do you know what? This could go in for another 20 minutes. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to carry on. So it's swings and roundabouts, isn't it? And I think it sounds like this new universe that they're making for the Pattinson Batman sort of thing, they are going to go more into TV shows going forward. I know there's going to be at least 2 other films, and there's going to be 2 TV series set in the same universe so far. As
this Batman.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they won't necessarily have Batman in it.
Right. Okay.
I suspect one of them will, but we'll touch on that later on.
Yeah, there is obviously the unnamed, cast member that is quite obviously the Joker, and obviously I am aware we are doing some spoilers here, so please do, if you come back to this after you've watched the film, that's great. Tom says, not staying for long, don't want spoilers, seeing Thursday, big love. Thank you very much, dude. We'll do a couple of comments, and then we'll come back. The movie has a difficult task, says Anthony. I really enjoyed Affleck's Batman, but the movies were terrible. Nolan was the biggest budget art house movie of all time and will be difficult to top as movies. I thought the budget was great, and it was. I thought it had just just enough action for me. I don't know if that says more about me than it does my taste films, because I preferred those films to this one. I thought this was. I'm gonna change the. There you go, so we can actually see our faces. The for me personally, this was too much. It was too over the top, too arty. And whereas obviously, but Affleck's was more blockbustery. I think. I don't know what you think, but I understand what Anthony's saying.
I sort of agree and sort of don't. I think, to me, it feels like we've gone from one extreme to the other. We had Ben Affleck, who was a 20-year veteran of being Batman, who has reached the end of his tether, who is, so sick of, the villains he's facing that he just doesn't. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, of course you are. Yeah,
he doesn't give a fuck anymore. He's brutal. He's like, the warehouse scene in Batman v Superman was like phenomenally brutal. And then you go from this seasoned veteran character to the the second year Robert Pattinson version, and he's much more green. He's more inexperienced, And I do like that, and I love how they brought stuff out of the comics. And I think that by the end of this trilogy, because it will be a trilogy, you will have a much more seasoned version of Batman.
Yeah, I suppose I'm not giving that account. Obviously, there is clear reference in the diaries of the year it is, in terms of his Batman journey, and perhaps I was a little bit premature with my judgment there of how his detective work needs a little bit of work and things like that. Because you're right, it's his second year as Batman, so that definitely that gives me a little bit of pause for thought in terms of how critical I was of the storyline. Certainly, I'd be interested to see how Pattinson, is doing from a performance perspective in 3 films' time. But yeah, Anthony says, how did you find the darkness in the movie? I've also heard it's quite a wet film. Well, it is quite literally a wet film. There's lots of wetness in it, but I won't go too much into detail.
Especially the final act.
Especially into the final act. But yes, how did you find the darkness in the movie? For me, it was very, very emo. It's very emo, but he's very emo Batman, isn't he? He's a very emo Batman, and that, that for me, I know people like that Pattinson Batman. I know people like, and that's cool, that's fine. But I think you want, and again, my main criticism has basically just been debunked by Graeme. My main criticism is the lack of, detective experience, the lack of, how easily. Because let's face it, the Riddler won. Like,
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. He did. Like, by the end of the film, there is no doubt that Batman did not win. He didn't win. It was. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it, but the Riddler won. Everything that he wanted to happen happened. His capturing and being arrested and ended up in Arkham. Yeah. He obviously planned that. You can see. I don't want to. I'm sorry for spoiling it. But,
be tasteful with the amount of stuff we reveal, of course. But I think you make a good point. I mean, the fact is, physically, Batman won. Batman wins. Absolutely fine. Yes, as you would expect physically, but mentally, and I think that's a strong point of the film. 3.5 hours later, is you realise, when your bum is numb and you've sat there for 3.5 hours needing the loo, or 3 hours 20 minutes, that actually, there's something in the fact that psychologically, this is quite an intense film, and probably, maybe I'll go back and watch it again. I know Jay, our colleague at the Comicssphere, wants to watch it, so maybe I'll go back and watch it again and have a new appreciation for it. But for me, the psychological win here is the Riddler's. The physical win, as you might expect, the riding off into the sunset. Well, not really, actually. Riding off into the sunset, kind of sad. It's not a triumphant. What I'm trying to say, it's not a triumphant win for Batman, is it? It's not. There's nothing triumphant about this film. There's nothing, and maybe that's to its credit, Graeme.
I think I would say that by the end of the film, Batman, as we see him in the film, is a different character. It looks like this is his first big obstacle he's faced as
Yeah,
Batman.
yeah, I think
And the second film, or his second appearance, if he is in another series of some sort, he will be a different person. I noticed one thing that like in throughout the entire film, he's mostly squinting at everything. But by the end of the film, his eyes are wide. You see him in like dressed up as Batman in the light, and he looks like a different person. He's covered in mud and all sorts. He looks totally different.
Yeah, yeah. Let's hear more from you here now, because again, you have more of an affinity, I think, with the comic book and obviously the character itself. You've been a long time fan. Your thoughts then on Pattinson's portrayal of the character, the storyline, and you said 8 out of 10 for you. So can you go
Right.
into more detail there?
As a comic book reader,
Yeah.
you may have noticed, I would say that it was quite comic accurate for the first time in a very long time. It's like right in the post-crisis DC universe, you've got your Crisis, right, and then it goes all the way up to New 52, and that era is one of the best eras in modern comics, really. And it's split up into different years, and you've got your first, like for Batman, you've got your first year where he's a complete rookie, right?
Yeah.
And this film sort of skipped over that. It referenced it, but it skipped over it for the most part. You've got little bits of stuff that happened in year one, like to do, like obviously with his parents being murdered, and the stuff that we already know, we don't need to see again. But what this lifts heavily from is the Long Halloween and a little bit of Dark Victory, Catwoman when in Rome. So like whoever, I don't know who wrote it. I assume it was what's his name, the director. I can't remember his name now.
I'll get that. I'll if you carry on talking to the audience, I'll get those details.
I assume it was him that wrote it, and I'm assuming that he's a fan of Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, not only because of those bits that he used from Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale's books, Long Halloween, Haunted Night.
It was Matt Reed.
Yeah, that's it. Also, there was a couple of little references to Hush, which is also by Jeff Loeb, but that's by the artist is Jim Lee. There was a lot of ego vibes in there, which is obviously Darwin Cook, which bless him, rest in peace. Phenomenal creator. One of the biggest things he created was the Batman Beyond intro. Have you seen Batman Beyond?
No.
No, right. Well, it's you'd love it, but it's irrelevant. But one of the comics he did was Ego. Hang on 1 second.
We get a bit of Graeme crack as well. Excellent.
So, Batman Ego.
Oh, amazing. Cool.
Right. Really, really good. To be fair, this is pretty much everything that Darwin Cook did as Batman stories go. Ego's only 48 pages of it, and it's a good 200 pages or so. I'll put that aside again. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff from that. Yeah, I mean, there's loads of it's been lifted from the comics. That Zero Year from New 52 as well. Like whoever's written it knows what they're doing, and there's still enough changed from the comics to make it interesting. And it's obviously been modernized to give it a sort of, if you adapted the Long Halloween now as it was, set in it was meant to be set in the late 80s, but it was written in early 90s or mid 90s. But if you had it set in the 80s, it would be different. Whereas this is very modern. The technology that he's using to use his detective skills is very modern.
Yeah, I appreciate that for sure.
Yeah, it's like, to me, it's a proper comic book film.
Cool. So you are a definite fan of it. I mean, obviously, there were some standout performances there. where do you rank then Pattinson's Batman versus, say, I know, we talked about, Anthony referenced Michael Keaton. We should probably answer some questions, actually. Anthony's been really active in the chat. Thank you very much for joining us, Anthony. We'll come back to that in terms of how you rank Pattinson as a Batman. I've heard the original cut of the film, this is Anthony, was 4 hours. The original cut of the Snyder film was 4 hours. Original cut of this film, rather, was 4 hours. Same as Snyder's cut of Justice League. Do you believe that by making these extended cuts, it can ruin the theatrical experience of the film? It depends if you're a diehard or a casual viewer. I would have, until recently, when I've started becoming more of a comic book fan, having a little bit more time to play with, to read stuff. I've only just become, a proper comic book, a guy in terms of someone that reads comic books regularly. I would still put myself in that casual viewer sort of fan base there. And so for me and for my partner Emma, who was with me, it was very long. And to me, I can't remember, because I think the Snyder cut, when I watched that was HBO Max during the pandemic. So like there was time to pause it, to get snacks, get a cup of tea, whereas this was one long, theatrical experience. So for me personally, Graeme, it does ruin the theatrical experience, the actual being in the cinema, actually, watching this film.
I agree. I think one of the problems with modern cinema is that directors are made to cut things down that they wouldn't necessarily want to. And then you have, things like, for example, Zack Snyder's Justice League. The actual product that he delivered eventually was really, really good. It was infinitely better than the theatrical cut. And I think the way the industry is moving, I think in 10 years' time, unfortunately, I don't think cinema is going to exist in the way it does now. And I think most things are going to be like your Mandalorian, like your
TV
streaming
shows,
thing.
You mean
Sorry?
TV? You mean like TV show format or streaming?
Yeah, I think not necessarily TV format, but streaming, and in a consumer friendly, chunkable viewing sort of, like it gives you the option to binge it or to pause it. Like Zack Snyder's Justice League, it was naturally split up into chapters, so you could pause it at certain points and carry on later. That's how it was released on HBO Max. I think that's how my copy is on Google Play. I can't remember. But then I think the Blu-ray, it's just one straight full film.
Yeah.
I think ultimately what's going to happen is, Disney are already moving away from Star Wars movies, and they seem to be putting everything on, the streaming shows. Warner Brothers are investing heavily in the two TV shows that are spinning off of this movie are a Penguin series and unnamed GCPD series.
Unnamed GCPD. What? That's interesting. I've not heard about that. Oh, the Penguin series could be cool as well.
I could say a lot about the GCPD thing. I don't want to nerd out completely, but in the comics there was a series called Gotham Central, and it was written by Ed Brubaker and Greg Rucka, and it is one of the best comics of its type. It won loads of awards. It was really good, and despite Batman being a main character in it, he's not really in it. He's in it maybe 4 times. It's more the effect of what Batman's got on the police force and how they deal with it. The main characters are people like Renee Montoya, who was in Birds of Prey.
Right, I'm with you. Okay.
It's really good. Yeah. And if the new series is anything like that, not like Gotham, because Gotham was different. I think Gotham tried to be like Gotham Central and it failed. If this is going to be like Gotham Central, but in this universe, I'll be very happy. If we get Jeffrey Wright playing, well, we will. We'll have Jeffrey Wright playing Gordon in the series. I think it'll be phenomenal. If Robert Pattinson cameos every now and then, but it's more, the Batman found this last night. He's tied him up and he's put him there. Let's go and deal with it.
Yeah.
So, I think it'll be really, really good. And I don't want to sort of over egg it, but Gotham Central. I've got Gotham Central over there as well.
Awesome.
It is one of the best comics you could read. It is phenomenal.
So there's a wide debate then with regards to sort of the streaming side of things. Obviously, the Batman will be out on HBO Max next month. And I thought that was finished. I thought post-pandemic that would be over, that type of streaming. But I guess it's indicative of the future of cinema, as you say, that they are going to be focusing more, by the sounds of it, on series rather than full-on theatrical movies.
Yeah, and I think with like with Mandalorian and Boba Fett as an example, and like Game of Thrones and stuff like that, you're talking really high budget, higher than a lot of cinema budget, like releases that are I mean, the Lord of the Rings series that's coming out soon is it's costing billions to make that. It's a stupid amount of money, incomprehensible amount of money. The Wheel of Time is very high budget. It's weird seeing cinema take this sort of route away from your traditional. You go to the theater, you watch a film, then you go home. This is like, but it also relies on you having a nice setup to be able to enjoy it properly. But I think that's a topic, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, you're right, man. Like I say, it's a wider topic, for another time in the future streaming. Let's just go into the comments because Anthony's brought some good points. Before Anthony sees the film, so he's saying, you comparing it to Long Halloween and Hush, he's in because of that. Are you standing by that comment now?
Me?
Yeah,
absolutely. It is as close to a live action adaptation of the Long Halloween that we'll ever get, I think. Obviously, it's not a straight adaptation, but a lot of it is in there. It's obviously not going to be the same story, but it's the Long Halloween is essentially year 2 of Batman. That's what it is. It was meant to it retconned Batman Year 2 out of existence by Todd McFarlane. It got rid of that and it replaced it with a new Batman Year 2. So Batman Year 1, you've got your Batman versus your criminal, organized crime sort of thing. Yeah. And then the Long Halloween it's his second year. That's when you start getting the supervillain. You've got you've got Two-Face's transformation from Harvey Dent into being Two-Face. You've got the introduction of all these different actual supervillains. And I felt like this was basically that. It was the introduction of the supervillain to Batman. It strikes me as this Batman has never come across Riddler before. And suddenly he's faced with the Riddler and he's like, what the friggin' hell do I do with this? This is, this isn't your crime boss or your street thug. This is
that was I've never seen, because obviously we've seen the Riddler. My pop culture version of the Riddler is Jim Carrey. Yeah. So this was a very different, and I think anybody going into the film, you're not going to see the Riddler that we've seen before. Maybe a little bit more when the mask comes off, and we see a little bit later on. But it's much darker, much more kind of much more intense a Riddler character than we used to see.
Extremely dark and quite graphic and gory in places, but not like in your face. It's like it's like off screen, and then like you see. I don't want to spoil it, but you see things that he's done, and it's very different to Jim Carrey's Riddler, and I love Jim Carrey's Riddler.
That was great, and that's the one I can't get out of my head. You see, I'm stuck with Jim Carrey's Riddler. So this was almost like a different character. There was points with exception to the exclamation marks and the persistent use of exclamation marks. I was like, this could be an entirely different character. But obviously the Riddler, the Riddler name is used, and obviously the reinterpretation is, I would suggest, the most interesting reinterpretation in cinema of a character I've seen in a long time. The Riddler character I'm talking about. Just going into the comments again, I suppose my question about cuts is: does it ruin the flow of the movie by jumping over certain points which we get later on? Do you want to answer that, Graeme?
I think that can only be answered if you see the what would be called the director's cut afterwards. Like as an example, with Snyder's Justice League, there are a lot of things that, in fact, not even that. If you go to Batman v Superman, the theatrical cut, there's a lot of things in it that just didn't make any sense, but you go with it because that's what you've been given. Whereas when you watch the director's cut, suddenly there's an entire subplot that was there, but it wasn't explained properly. You're led to sort of make your own conclusions as to what's going on. But in the director's cut, you're shown what's happening. You're shown why it's happening. You get given, like different characters, like perspectives on things and what's happening. And like there's like I said, there's an entire subplot that's it's crucial to the film.
Yeah.
But in the theatrical cut, it's just swept aside. And in hindsight, it ruins it. When I first saw the theatrical cut, I liked it. When I saw the director's cut, I cannot go back and watch the theatrical cut anymore because it's been butchered essentially.
Yeah. So we could be getting something completely different if we see the director's cut. Yeah, so it's worth bearing that in mind. Anthony pops in again. Gotham is a very interesting series, had a fascinating evolution. It started off as a very individual episode affair, but people wanted the longer form storytelling, not just one-offs. Fascinating. But it sounds like what you're saying, Graeme, is that they're maybe going towards that, more series-based in the future.
I think so, yeah. And I think, I think it's just the way of the world. And I think the pandemic's sort of proven it. I think the days of, cinema blockbusters are numbered, unfortunately. Don't get me wrong. I love going to the cinema and watching a film on the big screen. But I think, cinemas are in decline. I think the film industry is leaning away from that. I think when you've got big stars like Ewan McGregor signing up to do a Star Wars TV series rather than a film, because the big wigs think that that's what's going to be sold better. That the industry is changing.
Interesting, yeah, more kind of TV series based. Maybe it's the attention thing. Like I say, people shorter attention spans, more choice, etc. Interesting points there. A long Halloween 12-episode series could happen.
Do you know when they first announced the animated movie adaptation of The Long Halloween, I was praying it would be like an episodic, 12-chapter series that that adapted the comic properly, because the comic is that long. It's impossible to tell it in a movie. And to be fair, they did it in 2, and it was quite accurate. But I was praying for a series. I thought an animated series, mini series like that, I thought would be fantastic. Yeah. And I'd love the idea of a live action one. But as I say, they can't really do it now because they've just done it in the Batman.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah. I just want to say a quick shout out to Emma, who's come in to say hi. Hey, love. Interest is Anthony again. Thank you so much for the comments, dude. Really appreciate your engagement. Interesting what you say about the setups, Graeme. Very much my view on things, and I believe it's at a massive detriment to the theatrical movies. Directors trying to squeeze too much in. Is that I'll get your interpretation of that comment there, Graeme. Is that you saying, Anthony, that's the reason why we have this attention economy now? The reason why the cinemas are in decline, because movies have become too packed in, and I guess that people's attention just won't cut it anymore. Is that from my experience? That's what you're saying, Anthony. Obviously, we'll wait for some clarification. Anthony, you can tell I do a lot of podcasts with Anthony. Graeme, your thoughts on Anthony's comment there?
I think it's a mixture of things. I think Netflix and Prime and stuff becoming such big monsters in the industry, I think, have also, led to this. And I think 10 years ago, if you wanted to see a new film, it would either be straight to DVD or it would be out in the cinema. And there wasn't really much in between. You get some films that would see a limited release and then go to DVD or whatever. But generally, it was one or the other. And nowadays, you've got big companies like Netflix, and Amazon Prime where they're making stuff for their streaming services, and then you've got Warner Brothers going, "Oh, hang on a second, we'll do it with HBO Max," and then you've got Disney saying, "Oh, well, we've got Disney Plus, we'll do it on here." And before you know it, you got stuff that's coming out on Paramount Plus in America, and it's. I think it's a lot of things. I think it's a culmination of a lot of different occurrences that have just happened to happen at the same time that have led to what's going on and the way I think cinema's going. I think the catalyst for it would be the pandemic, because it proved to people that they could sit down at home and watch 12 episodes of whatever all in a go without having to worry about getting up for work the next morning. And it let companies like Warner Brothers, for example, they funded Snyder's Justice League to be done through the pandemic. They released it through the pandemic. I don't think, had the pandemic not happened, I don't think that would have happened. I don't think we'd have got that film.
Right. Okay. So it was a product of the pandemic because there was time, there was a desire to do it. Yeah. Interesting point. So Dark Knight is one of my favorite movies of all time, Anthony. It's so crammed with story, but all the setups are there. Seems a lot of directors are trying to create that depth, but unable to. So is that a directional? Is that the skill of the director there you're calling into question, Anthony? Again, your interpretation of that comment, Graeme.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the issues we've had over the past sort of 15, 20 years is a lot of directors have tried to put too much into a film. And, you've got things like Lord of the Rings where, I mean, they're like, don't get me wrong, I love them, but, even I say that they are too long. I love watching the extended cuts, but I couldn't sit in a cinema and watch it, which is how it should be watched, I think. If I was gonna picture the perfect scenario of watching the Lord of the Rings extended trilogy, it would be in a cinema. But altogether, that's 12 hours. It's not doable. And I think it's not just like Christopher Nolan and Peter Jackson and people like that. It's a lot of directors in the last few years have started making these really long, epic films, and they cram everything into it. And comic book films as well. They, to try and appease fans, especially with Marvel Studios, all they've done is they've slipped in reference after reference after reference after reference, and there's you can sit and watch videos on YouTube of people pointing out this little thing in the background and this little thing and this quote here, and and it gets to the point where it's just 4 hours of fan service, and I think some things that end up coming out because of this are going to end up being a series, just because they try and sort of keep up with each other and overtake each other. And obviously Marvel are doing a lot of these shows on Disney Plus, and personally I've not even had time to watch them all. And I think that's one of the negatives of the industry moving in that direction.
But then there's always something to look forward to there, I suppose.
But then I think I think personally, in terms of the MCU, I don't think sitting in the cinema and watching Endgame will ever be beaten. Do you know what I mean? And I think if they want to do say for argument's sake, they wanted to do an Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire spin-off series on Disney Plus, it would never be as good as watching Endgame.
You're right, but then for me, I am of that. That sort of my attention is so limited. I've got so many things commanding my attention, but the idea of watching any of those things on home appeals to me way more than going to the cinema. So I'm the audience, even though we're the same age. I'm the audience that. But I guess that's a testament to your fandom of the comic books and things like that. Whereas I'm like, if you can't keep my attention for, if you try and keep my attention for 3 hours 20 minutes, you've got to do a really good job. And there was other people that came out of the cinema last night that said, they were doing the same thing for 5 minutes straight. They were doing the same stuff over and over, and a lot of the same kind of things, quite long and drawn out. And I think that obviously we're 40 minutes in now, and obviously we are here to do a review. I mean, I mean, like I said, I've given my sort of thoughts and everything. Obviously, there was points that you wanted to discuss, particularly Graeme, that I know that you worked hard to bring to this stream. One was the soundtrack. I thought the soundtrack, as much as I have in my condensed review, uh, you know, I've picked on Robert Pattinson as a Batman, probably quite unjustly, because he's obviously the character he's playing his early days Batman. I have championed Paul Dano and Zoe Kravitz as the highlights of the film over Robert Pattinson. I'm not.
On that note, what do you think of Jeffrey Wright?
Hang on a minute.
Jim Gordon.
Sorry, just got a little bit sidetracked there. Jim Gordon. It's an interesting one because I thought he was fantastic. I thought he was good. I think there's a. It's hard to summarize because I thought he was a good character, but I'm like, having grown up on Batman films, I've got very specific. To me, Jim Gordon is and I compare everybody to who was the trilogy's Jim Gordon.
Oh God, him out of Harry Potter.
that guy. Yeah,
I can't think of his name.
He's in everything, isn't he? He's in everything. Oh man,
it's going to annoy me now. I can remember
Gary
the name
Oldman,
of Gary Oldman. Yeah. See, I can remember the name of the Commissioner Gordon in the Tim Burton, Joel Schumacher movies. Yeah. That was Pat Hingle, and I was thinking Pat Hingle. I completely forgot Gary Oldman.
So Gary Oldman. Obviously, Anthony's come in there with the comment as well. Gary Oldman to me now again. This Gordon very good. What was again? I had a little bit of a brain moment as we were trying to recall the name of the actor's name for the Gordon this movie. Very good good indeed.
I felt like that. I went in thinking that this is going to be. It was going to have undertones of being a bat and the cat love story.
I think there was.
And then by the end of it, I hope I'm not spoiling it, but she does say that you're already taken or something like that. That's actually a line out of Year Zero.
Yeah.
But I think she was referencing like not the city, but Jim Gordon. And I don't know whether I'm joking or not. I can't tell, but to me it felt like it was more of a love story between Batman and Jim Gordon.
I think there's a lot of those. I'm sure there's some fan fiction out there somewhere, but I'm sure there's a lot of the films do sort of hint at that. You know what I mean? That relationship between the two of them in terms of just the reliance on each other. Even the Harley Quinn cartoon jokes about that. Actually, I watched the Harley Quinn cartoon. It's got some.
It's great, isn't it?
Rather humorous jokes on that. But yeah, I was impressed with Gordon. Basically, everybody for me in this film that was cast did their role particularly well. To be honest, I wasn't sold on Alfred in this. I wasn't sold on. I know that sounds harsh because I know we talked about it, but like for me, but that's me with my preconceptions. Alfred.
To be fair, like Alfred didn't really need to be there.
Yeah.
He didn't have any sort of plot at all. Apart from that thing that happens.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil that.
Yeah, no, apart from that, yeah.
Yeah, apart from that, and that could have happened to anyone. Alfred wasn't really needed, really.
Yeah.
I think the casting was great. I even think Robert Pattinson was really good. But one thing that did annoy me, and I do want to bring up, is I really didn't like his Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. To me, he was like just an emo kid, which is fine. Again, I get it because obviously, I mean, he's been through some rubbish that fortunately you and I haven't had to go through as a character, but so you can't really, of course he's going to be struggling, but this is a character that's been played by many people for, yes, it's the 40s. There you go. So, it's a really difficult role to fill, difficult shoes to fill. So you're saying that you didn't like the Wayne. Again, I'm not. Please do give me your
I
thoughts.
think I think his Bruce Wayne was probably good, but personally, I didn't like it. It was weird how I was expecting, like in every Batman film, you've got 40% Bruce Wayne and 60% Batman, and this felt like it was 95% Batman. And even when he is Bruce Wayne, he's not really Bruce Wayne. He's just not got the mask on. He's in a different suit. He's still Batman, and he's just going out in public as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, there's not that sort of corporate facing.
Yeah, he's not putting on a different face.
Yeah, it was alluded to, wasn't it? It was in a meeting he was supposed to go to, but we never saw that.
Yeah.
So we didn't get to see that duality in the character. So I think there are some pitfalls there, definitely to address. Is there anything on your notes, Graeme, that you want to touch on? I'm going to try and keep this to an hour and move just over an hour. So is there anything you want to touch on?
Lots of things. The movie in particular, I don't know if anyone noticed this, but there was this. I assume it wasn't meant to be the Joker's gang, but it looked like the Joker's gang out of the comics animated series.
The one with the face paint.
Yeah, there was a kid with the face paint on only half of his
face.
I don't know if anyone noticed that, but that was Tim Drake out of Titans.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. That I did like that. One thing I noticed as well is I don't know if it's spoiling it, but when he injects himself.
Yeah, the adrenaline.
Yeah, I think the common interpretation of that is adrenaline. I don't think it is. I think that is referencing a comic by Denny O'Neil called Venom, where Batman gets addicted to venom, and it's the same stuff that later is used by Bane.
Okay.
With the same color. It might be adrenaline. I don't know, but that's my guess. I assume that is venom.
Okay. Wow. Interesting.
What else did I notice? Obviously, when he says "I am vengeance," I felt that was. I mean, we knew about that.
You mean? Because
Come on, do it.
I'm vengeance.
You mean that? Yeah.
I do mean that. It's not the only time he says it in the film either. He does say it a few times, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's said quite a lot. Even the Riddler's henchman says it. It's repeated quite a lot.
Yeah. It's almost as if he's not called the Batman. He's called, the Vengeance or something.
Yeah.
I took that as a reference to be from the episode of Batman animated series from series 1 called Nothing to Fear, and in that he says, "I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman." Like sort of mustering up all his energy to fight. I think it's the Scarecrow. I think he fights.
Cool. So carry on.
Yeah, there's loads of stuff I noticed. I've wrote loads of notes down that I was trying to remember to go through it all. Have you read Hush or seen the film or anything like that?
I know. I've read a little bit of Hush. I've seen like the animated series where he's in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I know Hush the character.
Right. I didn't know if it was a reference or not, and I came out asking if it was a reference because I couldn't tell. But there was a character in there called Edward Elliot, right, and I think that is meant to be Tommy Elliott's grandfather.
Okay.
And then immediately after you see him, like 3 seconds later, you see something else, and the Riddler's wrote "hush" over it. Obviously, it means hush, as in hush money. You paid to be quiet.
I know.
But the connotations of hush, I thought are quite interesting.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Do you think? I mean, that's a question. A much deeper question. These two other films that you're sort of predicting here. What can you see happening in those films? Obviously we've got an allusion to the Joker. But what can you see happening in those films? Where do you go from here?
I think what's going to happen is you've got your first acts where the Batman doesn't really know what he's doing. He thinks he does, and he's acting like a detective, but he's not the world's greatest detective, as he was mockingly called in the film. He doesn't really know what he's doing. He does a bit of detecting, but he's notably behind what he should be. Paying attention to. it's pointed out to him that something that he should have discovered right in the first act, he didn't notice until the very end, and all that sort of thing. I think he's going to grow from that and being unable to control his anger to being the Batman that we all love and know in, like Batman the Animated Series, the Arkham games, where he's, a master of everything he does. I think by the third film, that's what we'll have. And I suspect as well that he'll, like, Pattinson will himself, bulk up and, look more and more like the superhero that we know, as Batman, what he is in this one.
Yeah, I mean, again, it shows the early development of Batman. I think that's key to anybody coming back to watch this. Is we're seeing a very early days Batman, in the early part of his journey.
As I say, this is essentially year 2. This is the Long Halloween, but in movie form.
Yeah,
I think as well with what happens in the film, and again, I don't want to spoil it too much, but they set up a power struggle. Clearly, that's what's happening. You've got Penguin, who is going to do something.
Yeah,
I think he's going to try and take over, parts of Gotham.
Yeah, so
I think there's going to be a big power struggle, and I think, I think we might see something closer to No Man's Land in the future. I think there'll be, like in how The Dark Knight Rises, you've got Gotham being completely sieged and cut off from the rest of America, and you've got, like, martial law and all that. I think we'll see that again.
Yeah.
I think Batman will find himself out of his depth and still struggling, but I'm hopeful. I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, I think that sort of, again, that Batman out of his depth and still struggling. I think, the more I think about it, the more I think that there's something quite interesting in that, because it's not what we've seen. So actually, again, my criticism has holes because I'm criticizing this Batman that doesn't really know what he's doing. But actually, it does give a different perspective. Maybe it's just the running time. Maybe it's just how numb my ass was by the end of it. But I think that, there is something quite interesting about watching a guy who obviously has a reason to become the Batman, grow and develop into Batman, this is Raising Far From Home is interesting. This is a comment from a little while ago. As an avid Spider-Man fan, I enjoyed it, but the kids I took struggled. Primarily, it required you to watch 7 movies to fully appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know, it's a bit like a wrestling thing almost, where are they relying too much on people that, really love the backstory, really watch it every week, watch all the movies, because arguably these films have to be for the casual viewer. They have to catch you up immediately.
Yeah.
They have to entertain someone as if they have no idea who Batman is, who Spider-Man is. And does this succeed in doing that? Because again, I guess if you're going to bring this to the big screen, you're going to pay all this money. You want to make money, and you want to attract casual viewers. And I guess that's the question. For me, I don't think this film, unlike the Justice League, I don't think this attracts casual viewers. Kids.
Yeah,
an example there.
I think the problem with No Way Home is any kid is going to have their favourite version of a character. Like, my kids like Tobey Maguire, and they are Tobey Maguire Spider-Man fans. So when they watched Andrew Garfield, they weren't impressed. When they watched the MCU ones, they eventually grew on him, but it took a while. So when they watched No Way Home, they were impressed because it was Tobey Maguire again. That's when they started cheering.
Yeah.
They didn't really care about Andrew Garfield. But I think most kids will like Tom Holland, and they won't care about the other guy. And I think it's the same with the Batman film. Any kids were going to have their own favourite Batman. And also, the Batman is a 15, so you're not going to get many kids watching it in the first place.
You're right, absolutely. Well, that was the reason I couldn't get to the second one. Was that I googled the American certificate, which is 12A for any Americans watching. 12A, so that would have been fine. And I didn't. I just googled 12A and got excited about seeing it on opening day, and bought the tickets. And then I couldn't.
I remember saying it was, I don't know, maybe a week before it came out. I remember saying The Mandalorian from the trailers looked like it was going to be quite violent and adult orientated, but it wasn't. It's still a kids show. And I remember saying, I think the Batman is made to look quite mature, but it won't be. It'll be fine. And I sat down in the cinema, and then it came up in a big circle that said 15 in the middle of it. And I thought, all right.
Yeah, no, it is intense, and that is something I would say for any parents. But I think if you're 15, for obviously, 15, you'll be fine. But yeah, definitely just bear that in mind. So Graham, to summarise, we'll summarise it. We'll answer this question from Anthony. I think it's a shame they've included the Joker. So many more villain stories to tell. You're right, but I guess again for catching people for the next movie, for getting people into the movie, who better to do that than what are they going to do with the Joker? Your thoughts on that, Graham?
I think the Joker is the quintessential Batman villain. He always will be. At the end of Batman Begins, there was a reference to the Joker. He pulled out. I think Jim Gordon pulled out the Joker playing card and said, "We found this." And then Batman's like, "Oh, I'll look into it." It's always going to be the Joker. If the Joker's not in the first film, he's got to be referenced in the next one. That's just. I think that's always going to be the case. I think even Ben Affleck, his portrayal of Batman, still referenced the Joker constantly, even though in Batman v Superman there was no Joker. It was only, and then the weird thing as well is that when you do get the Joker in that universe, the Joker's in it a lot more than Batman is, which is crazy. And I still, I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but I still can't believe that we've had Ben Affleck as Batman in so far, 3 films, I think, 4? And then we've got 2 more to come this year. No, 1 more to come this year. I'm thinking of Michael Keaton. And this is going to be his last hurrah, and we're not actually going to get a solo Ben Affleck Batman film. I think that's a crying shame, because I think he deserved one. Really, I think we're robbed, to be honest. As fans, I think we're robbed.
Yeah.
On that note as well, before we move on, I just want to quickly point out as well that for the rest of the year, we do have Keanu Reeves playing Batman.
I'm sorry,
Did
what?
you know that?
Oh my God, I just came. What?
In May. It's animated, but Keanu Reeves is officially playing Batman in May in League of Superheroes. I know, it's still good though, isn't it?
I was going to be like...
Yeah. We've got Ben Affleck playing Batman in The Flash in November, which everyone knew. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
Michael Keaton's also playing Batman in the same film. What many people don't know yet, because I don't think it's been officially announced, is that Michael Keaton is playing Batman again in the Batgirl movie, which is coming straight to HBO Max. I think it might be coming out on Sky over here, I think.
Oh, nice.
That's actually coming out in December.
Wow.
I don't think they've announced it yet.
So it's a big year for Batman films and for Batman fans. Yeah. Interesting question here from Anthony. And I am going to challenge you, Graeme, at the end to go through your notes. So there is going to be, I want you to address the things that you've brought to the stream. But before we do that and we finish off, from my experience of kids, only recent, they watch less movies, just YouTube synopsis of movies, and think they understand the movie from the 10-minute YouTube screaming taglines. Bizarre. Yeah, it's certainly my experience as well. Attention economy, man. I love that phrase. It's such a pain in the ass, but it's true. People just watch YouTube now. People just stream stuff because, again, there's always something else that they can click off onto. And in a cinema, you're a captive audience. And you're right, Graeme, there's probably, the next 10, 20, 30 years, that may die down. But yeah, your thoughts from your, Anthony's experience, recent, mine as well, fairly recent.
I agree. I think the main cause for that is probably that, like, when we were kids, you could rent a film from Blockbuster, or you could buy one, or you could go out to the cinema and watch it. But either way, you were locked in. If you bought a film, you felt forced to watch it.
Yeah.
Because you paid money for it. If you rented it, same thing. If you went to the cinema, I think I've only ever walked out of one film in the cinema because it was that bad.
Right.
I won't say what it is. But like if you go to the cinema, you want to get your money's worth. You want to stay and you want to watch it. Whereas nowadays, YouTube's free. If you're deciding on whether you want to go and watch a film, even as an adult, you can watch a video like this and think, that sounds all right. Or you can think, oh, no, I'm going to pass on that. kids are the same. You know, if a kid can sit on YouTube for an hour, they're going to spend some of that watching a free video about a film that their friends have watched.
Yeah,
You know, and they'll form an opinion based on what other, you know, YouTubers' opinions are, and
yeah,
they'll decide
yeah.
from there. You know, and I think that's a lot of it as well. And I think that might be another reason why we're edging towards this streaming only series platform.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I agree with you. I do absolutely. And part of me, like I said to you earlier, I'm a bit, I like that because I just don't have a lot of things need to grab my attention to keep me, and so I quite like that. I don't know whether to be ashamed of admitting that, but I do quite like the fact that that's where we're going. But it is a shame for these directors and these people pouring their heart and souls into these grand cinematic universes that again we're going that way, and it's going to be more sort of series based.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think like personally, I think it depends on what the you know the show or the movie is. Like, I don't mind watching a Transformers film, but I'm
Mm.
not going to sit and watch 9 hours of a Transformers series on, you know, Paramount Plus or whatever.
But that would be broken up, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah,
So
it would be, but I'm still not going to invest 9 hours of like of my life in.
see, yeah, I
I
see.
can watch 2 hours in a film with the kids. I'm not going to watch 9 hours of it, even if it's split up over 9 weeks.
Yeah,
It's too much for me. I don't like Transformers that much,
I
you
see what
know.
you mean. I do see what you mean. I can understand that. But again, it's a generational thing. I think we're just old. The problem is to show the Joker. This is going back to the Joker debate with Anthony here. You're going to struggle to move on from that because he's such a dynamic character. Everything will be compared to him. Anthony goes on to compare. Same with the Gotham series. Jerome was not intended for more than one episode, as they weren't allowed to use the Joker, but they were able to move forward without him. So again, that power that they've given the Joker just by now having that minute and a half long dialogue that is placed in the film. I won't say where, but have they doomed the interest of for example in I guess other characters, you know what I mean? Because again, the Riddler, what the Paul Dano's performance for me, the standout of the whole thing. Have they, is he going to play second fiddle to the Joker now? And we're not going to get to see some of that dynamic in the future films.
I think personally, the problem with the Dark Knight trilogy is that, you know, they teased the Joker at the end of Batman Begins. Then there's the film about the Joker, and then the third one, you know, regardless of, you know, Heath Ledger's passing or whether the character, went into the third one or whatever, was never going to be as good as the second one. And I think if they want to do this trilogy properly, what they need to do is have Joker have a cameo in the second film and make the third film about the Joker.
Right. Okay.
Go balls to the wall on the Joker in the third film. Make it all about make it like a cinematic adaptation of like the original Arkham Asylum game.
Yeah. Oh God.
That
So good. So
Yeah.
good. See, that's the only other time I've like literally come because of anything. But you know, what I mean, those games were perfect. Like
Yeah.
I tweeted about it the other week because I went back and played like for half an hour one of the Arkham games. Like, there's very few perfect things in the world, and I don't know whether anything's actually perfect, but that to me, that all-time great games, those Arkham games.
I think the first one, this might be a little bit controversial, but I think the first Arkham Asylum game was literally perfect. And I think they've got bigger and technically better since. But the first one, in terms of its storytelling, the fact I said this to you on Twitter at the time, the fact that Paul Dini wrote it, the fact that Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill voiced, Joker, sorry, Batman and Joker respectively. I think it brings it into the DC animated universe, and it is perfect. Just brilliant.
Oh God, so stunning. Anthony there with a comment. 100% agree with Graeme. Can we make the Joker in the seventh film? Right. Okay. So that's putting the Joker back. Yeah. I mean, for me, I love the Joker. I love that character. Not in terms of what he does. I think he's a terrible human being. But obviously the character in law. Mark Hamill, baby, yeah, absolutely amazing. Those games you can go back to now. I know they've re-energized the franchise with the Suicide Squad game coming out at the end of this year. But yeah, honestly, those games are like a million times better than this film. Go play the games.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
For me, right. So Graeme, you prepared some stuff, and we've talked loosely about this, but I think it's a shame to bring you on here to do the Batman review, and you've spent time researching and doing things. So from your notes, then let's while we wind up, let's reflect on some of your notes and things that you wanted to talk about.
I think we've more or less covered it all. It was just like trivia I'd noticed while we were watching while I watched the film. There's like little things like there's an attorney mentioned in it, and they get a letter saying, cease and desist, blah blah blah, and the solicitors it's from, or the lawyer it's from, is Miller and Moore, which is obviously Frank Miller, Alan Moore, comic book writers.
Yeah,
a nice little nod.
Yeah.
I could tell you about the comics I think you should read if you want to fully enjoy the film.
yeah, government. Obviously, this isn't just for me. This is for anybody
Yeah.
coming back to watch this.
Like, firstly, I would say Ego.
That looks beautiful.
I'll tell you what, it is beautiful. The actual story is only a short story. Ego. The bulk of this is actually a Catwoman story, but like the artwork, I'll just show you it.
Oh, cool. Oh,
see
yeah,
that?
lovely, yeah. Like the old school Batman animated series.
Yeah, well, that's what Darwin Cook's background was. He worked on Batman the Animated Series, and he worked on Batman Beyond, which is a sequel to Batman the Animated Series. You do need to watch that. I'm not even joking.
I watched. Right, yeah. Please, yeah, I will do. I will.
Right, very, 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 very quickly. I will just grab. I think it's just these ones. Right, so what I would say is, first and foremost, Batman Year One.
Yeah.
Right.
Amazing.
There's an animated movie as well. Feel free to read that. It's written by Frank Miller, and that is the post-crisis revamp of Batman. It reads like Selena Kyle's a prostitute. It's got what you see in Batman v Superman, where the pearls scatter everywhere as he shoots her. It's got all that stuff. It's brilliant. Another thing I would recommend, when people say Batman never has a gun.
Yeah.
So this is Batman Year 2, where he's holding.
That's like
do it properly. Go on.
Yeah.
This was overwritten by The Long Halloween, but it's still a really good story. It's worth reading. In relation to this film, it's it's the psyche of Batman when he was still young and new to it.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing that you want to read, and I've got a really good edition of this, but it's not very easy to show on the camera.
Okay.
So like the main stories you want are The Long Halloween, Dark Victory, and Catwoman When in Rome, and they form like a sort of trilogy.
Nice.
And they're all by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. Jeff Loeb being famous for writing Batman Hush.
Yeah. I need to do, because what I read of, I was fascinated by that character.
Hush is good, but Hush is nowhere near as good as this.
Okay.
He also wrote a lot of the Heroes, the TV show Heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote a lot of that. He was the showrunner for a lot of the Marvel TV series and stuff as well.
Oh, cool.
And Ultimate Spider-Man, I think he wrote a lot of that for. But you can get individual paperbacks of each of these stories, or you can get they're bringing out new deluxe hardcovers, which are essentially these, that sort of thickness.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man.
But what I've got all of them in this thing.
Wow.
And that's got all of their work together. Well, not all of it, because there's a new Long Halloween special. But apart from that, it's got all of it together.
Yeah.
And I would highly recommend reading that, because this, The Long Halloween, is probably one of the best Batman stories ever made.
Oh yeah, it's incredible.
I'll try and work out where it is. Valentine's Day. about that much of it is Long Halloween.
Okay, yeah. Good thickness there.
Yeah, it's nice and girthy and long.
Indeed.
And I can't praise Long Halloween enough because it is honestly it's a work of art.
A lot of people say how wonderful it is, how great it is. So I think there's something there. Like I say, it's good to have those recommendations, and please do post in the comments and things of this video when it's done. If you have bought or checked out any of these comics that Graeme is recommending as well. Graeme, before we finish up, then so again, review purposes. Realistically for me, 6.5 out of 10. Highlight of the film is Paul Dano's Riddler. The soundtrack is amazing. I will give it.
Soundtrack is amazing.
Full on 8 out of 10 for the soundtrack, and we haven't talked a lot about that. Love the use of Nirvana's Nevermind as an aging grunge kid. But aside from that, the classic, just the classical nature of it, recorded in Abbey Road as well. I noticed absolutely stunning work on the soundtrack. Weaker points for me still, and I'm willing to be proved wrong, is Pattinson's Batman. Again, you have slightly changed my main criticism because, again, the story shows him being, growing and developing as a Batman. And my criticism that I came in here with was, of course, the fact that he didn't really feel like much of a detective. But, of course, he's 2 years into his journey. So my main criticism now is that my main kind of gripe is that I need to wait and see how Pattinson develops into the role. But for me, in terms of Keaton and in terms of Kilmer and in terms of Affleck, there are better Batmans for me personally, which leave this to be 6.5 out of 10 for me on the whole. I haven't said enough good things about Zoe Kravitz as a Catwoman. Probably my favorite interpretation of Catwoman, and I do apologize to anybody listening back to this. I cannot say enough good things about two particular performances in Paul Dano as the Riddler and Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. Those roles were fantastic, and they saved the film. Took the film from a lower grade for me personally. You had the Penguin as well, Andy Serkis playing Alfred. But again, those I'm checking my judgments there because I look at Alfred as what I mean. Alfred. Yeah. You've only gone and blown the bloody doors off.
Michael Caine.
Michael Caine. I look at Alfred as Michael Caine, and I look at Jim Gordon as Gary Oldman. So those are my I'm aware that they play their roles very well. So they play their roles very well, but I don't like them as much as I liked Oldman. I don't like them as much as I like Alfred as much as I like Caine. But Andy Serkis does a good job. Obviously, you're looking at a very, very transformed Colin Farrell as well. And I don't give him enough credit either during this review. So for me, there's some things there. 6.5 for me. I want to be. I was wowed by the Riddler's performance. Was absolutely standalone and made the film worth my time, worth the 3 hours 20 minutes. Was for Riddler's performance, and that's what I will take from this film. Is Paul Dano as an incredible performer with real range. Obviously, the curiosity around Barry Keoghan or Barry. Correct, Matt. Sorry, I apologize for the pronunciation, but the unannounced or unnamed Gotham resident Barry Kay. I will go with because I can't pronounce his second name. I apologize, but obviously there's intrigue there as well. So that's my point. 6.5 highlight of the film is Paul Dano, closely followed by Zoe Kravitz. Everything else was good. In fact, everything else was okay, and I think that's why I'm making it 6.5 for me. Your final thoughts there, Graeme?
I'm going to stick with my 8 out of 10. I think it was a really good film, and I think it was a very refreshing take on Batman. As Batman goes, I still preferred Ben Affleck, and I still feel robbed that we didn't get a Ben Affleck film. I think it felt a bit like the actual city of Gotham looked very similar to the city of Gotham in the Dark Knight trilogy.
Mm.
I think some parts of the Batman mythos were taken away, and we've not even really noticed. Like the Wayne Mansion, you don't see it, he lives in a tower. That sort of thing's weird. It's quite jarring, I think, and it takes away from the, like the Batman mythos that we all love.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's I honestly think it was better than Michael Keaton. I think maybe Batman Returns was a better film, but I think Robert Pattinson's portrayal was better than Michael Keaton's, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I'm really hopeful for what comes next. I cannot wait for this GCPD unnamed series. I really hope it's quite close to Gotham Central. I'd love it to be like that. I'm looking forward to this Penguin series we're going to be getting as well. I think that's next year, though. GCPD's this year and Penguin's next year, I think.
I'll watch the Penguin series if Colin Farrell's in it.
Well, I'm hoping GCPD might have Colin Farrell in it as well.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I would hope so. I don't want to go off on one about comics again, but with Gotham Central, the comic series, can I grab that as well?
Please do.
I have a lovely box set that's not published by DC; it's published by Eagle Moss, and it's got like a sort of shiny.
Oh,
it's gorgeous, isn't it? It's lovely.
Oh,
like
God,
really, really. Look at it. And it's a proper police procedural. It's like watching a cop show, but it's set in the world of Batman. But Batman is literally barely in it. If the new series is anything like that, I will be amazed. It's got the villains in it, and it's how the GCPD react to it all. And
amazing. A completely different perspective.
Yeah, let's get one out real quickly.
Yeah, no, do it. This is what we're here for, man.
Let's do it. I can guarantee I'll open up a page and there is no Batman anywhere to be seen.
Okay.
Right? He's honestly, he's in it maybe 4 times. It's Batman's the main character, but he's not really in it. He's he's heard of, he's not seen. There's an entire issue about an intern that works at GCPD, and her job, because she's only an intern, she's the one that's allowed to turn the switch on for the bat signal, and no one else is.
Oh wow, amazing!
Because she's technically not like civil service; she's an intern. It's complicated, but the way they explain it, it's just so clever, so well written, award winning. So you need to read it. It's really, really good. Absolutely. Please read it. Don, please read it.
You know what? Well, I will do, man. I will. It looks great. It looks fantastic, and obviously, there's a lot of positives to come from this. You said 8 out of 10 for your review. Your stand-up performances. Your favorite performer then of this. Your favorite performer of the movie.
Easily the Riddler.
Yeah.
Easily. I knew it was going to be good, and I knew it was going to be different, but I was not expecting that level of creepiness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think a close second would probably. I think Penguin would just beat Catwoman. I think Penguin would be second. Catwoman would be third. And it's unusual for there to be that many villains in a film, and it still work.
Yeah.
Especially a Batman film. Normally, the more villains you've got, the more crap it is.
There was so much time to play with. There's so much time. To play with. Yeah. Your thoughts then quickly on the runtime, 3 hours. Were you bored?
Was it actually 3 hours? Because I can't remember.
3 hours. It was 3 hours, and then obviously the credits as well.
Yeah, I think if you're going to go and watch it at the cinema, I wouldn't bother staying for the end credits because it's not really. It's essentially it's a website that you can. It just shows you a website, so don't bother staying. Just find out what the website is and go on the website and do that because that's quite interesting. I think it probably justifies its screen time. I think it would be doing itself a disservice if it wasn't as long as I think anything that was cut would ruin it.
Right.
And
Okay.
I would be very keen to watch an uncut version of it. I'd like to see what scenes were actually cut. I think it'd be interesting.
Mm, mm.
But again, it's the way the industry is going. Like films are getting longer, they're becoming more like a TV series, and that's this sort of thing you'd have to watch from start to finish. You couldn't watch it in chunks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it is long, and it's like when you compare it to films of a similar length, like Endgame, stuff like that. It's not as exciting. But then again, it's an adult film. It's not for kids. Kids will get stressed out sat watching a film for 3 hours, whereas this is designed for grown-ups. And I do think it's good, and I'd hate to see it butchered by Warner Brothers execs and turned into an hour and a half. I think it'd ruin it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you want it left as it is, pretty much, but maybe some content added in.
I'd like to see the extended cut, but I do think it's good as it is. I would hate to see it cut down.
I'd want to see that at home where I can have a brew.
Yeah, I'd want to watch it. I think going forward, I think a lot of Warner Brother films are just going to be made for home.
Yeah, yeah.
I think once HBO Max goes global, if it ever does, I think that's how a lot of their films are just going to come out now.
Absolutely.
Starting with Batgirl in December.
Yeah, we'll have to see that. We'll have to come back and do a review on that, Graeme. And thank you so much for joining me, mate. It's been a pleasure. This is the first live review we've ever done on Soundsphere. We normally do them on the website in written form, so this is the first ever film review we've ever done digitally. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you come back to this,
I have, yeah.
Hopefully, if anybody else comes back to this, you've enjoyed it as well. Let us know what you think when you've seen it in the comments. Obviously, we have put some spoilers in here, so I apologize. Like I said, we tried to be as transparent with that as possible in the description. But yeah, if you hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully, you come back and when you watch this, and you can put your thoughts in the comments as well. Graeme, before we finish up, we'll have a little bit of a random question then. So, if you were casting, and you could pull the plot together of any Batman universe anywhere, what would you make a film adaptation of, and who would you cast in your film?
Oh,
I'll put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
That's a good question.
I'll put you on the spot. I just wanted to finish off rather than just going, see you later, guys. But this, I feel like this is a good question. While I've got you, I think this is a good question.
This could be a full video.
maybe we'll do that.
What I would like to see would be a Batman film with Scarface as the villain.
Okay.
Do you know who Scarface is?
No. When somebody says Scarface, I think of.
All right, I've got it, but it's not. It's a thin comic and it's not got a spine. Do you want me to look for it, or do you want me to just describe it?
Describe it for me.
Right. So you've got. Oh, I can't remember his name. Right. This is created by Alan Grant and I think Norm Brayfogle, and it's ventriloquist who's got a dummy called Scarface.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, I know ventriloquist because he's in the game.
Yes, he is. He's in the game. Right. So. Right, normally in the cartoons and in a lot of the comics and stuff, it's basically he's a bit of a fruitcake and he's got a dummy, whereas there is one particular comic book by the creator of the character Alan Grant, where they make it more supernatural, and it turns out the wood that was used to make this dummy, I think it was from an Indian burial ground or something like that, and it's got a supernatural edge to it, and it turns out it might actually be possessed, and it turns out that the guy that's got the dummy might actually not be going crazy. He might be taken over by a spirit, and it's very supernatural. Amazing. Very creepy.
That sounds really cool.
I would love that, and if I was going to cast anyone as Scarface, it would have to be someone like Mark Hamill, someone who's got a lot of range as an actor and a voice actor.
Yeah.
Or maybe Tim Curry when he was in his prime.
Amazing. Okay. And
who's
your Batman in that situation?
Ben Affleck.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be really interesting. And that's another question for you guys in the comments. If you come back to this, and if you get to the end, You hopefully, like I say, you do, and you can answer that question. Who would you cast if you, and in what Batman universe would you create if you were in control? Graeme has created Scarface, and he has cast Mark Hamill and Ben Affleck as his Batman and Scarface, respectively. So yeah, I'm going to put that question out into the universe and see if anybody comes back. Graeme, thank you so much for your time. We will do this again. I've enjoyed. This is a much easier way of doing film reviews because it's cool. We can just chat. It's nice, man.
Yeah, this is nice. I do miss coming on to yours and like having Maltesers and Pepsi and stuff.
I like that too, but I'm lazy now. This is easy. I like this. This is great. So
yeah. The advantage for me as well is if I want to talk about anything on there, I can just go and grab it. You know.
Yeah. It's a fine balance, isn't it? It's a fine balance, and we'll leave on Anthony's going. I became a man thanks to Michelle Pfeiffer. There you go. Michelle Pfeiffer was a good guy. Zoe has a lot on our plate. Well, I'm sure that you will enjoy Zoe's performance, Anthony. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you come back to this, thank you, Graeme, for your time. I'm going to leave us with fittingly because it's AEW Revolution tonight. Go and check out the review of that over on Give Me a Whole Year later on. I'm going to leave us with AEW superstar Malachi Black giving us a little bit of a sign out. Graeme, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you soon. What? I just see the cat tail.
They're currently having an argument. Oi, come here.
Cool. Right. Take it easy, man. I'll see you in a bit. Thank you guys for watching.
Catch you later.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
I am AEW superstar Malachi Black. And every Wednesday and sometimes Friday, you can catch me on TNT, where I execute some form of justice onto any deserving individual that stands in my way. All for the improvement of the House of Black. But today I'm a messenger, which is ironic because the name Malachi translated means messenger. And this message goes out to anyone from Soundsphere, whether you've read the interviews on the website itself, or Soundsphere TV. Soundsphere wants you to know that they are very thankful for each and every one of you. So, from myself, via the House of Black, via Soundsphere, thank you very, very much. And before I go, I will leave you with this gem. There's one absolute truth. The house never loses. The house always wins. Go check out Soundsphere. Thank you.